I've worked on Macs and iMacs in particular for around about a decade now, so I've got very used to the glorious Retina displays on these machines. Just recently, I bought the studio display you can see just behind me, and I've been delighted with it. But this week, I got a chance to put it up against its predecessor, the 5K LG ULTRAFINE. Hi there guys, welcome back to me, David, talking tech. This year, I knew that I was going to buy a new Mac, and for the first time ever, I was pretty convinced that also I was going to switch from an iMac desktop over to a MacBook Pro, just in case I wanted to be a bit more free of where I worked. So I did. I've got the 16-inch MacBook Pro, but something in my mind thought I might regret not having a larger screen to work on. So come peak performance in March, of course, everything was complete for me with the announcement of the studio display. I popped that in a basket along with the 16-inch MacBook Pro. And I can honestly tell you, I have been so happy with this workflow I've got at the moment. It's the quickest and most productive workflow I've ever had. And we're living in an absolute purple patch of Macs at the moment. If you go to the website and look at what we can get with Apple Silicon, be it the iMac 24-inch, the Mac Mini, or of course the MacBook Pros as well, they are amazing machines. Quiet, quick, efficient, so fast. Okay, you can't get a hold of them at the moment. You can't actually buy them, but that's a whole other story about the supply chain. But the actual Macs that we've got are wonderful. Now, I have written some blogs on this and I've made some videos about the studio display, but this week, finally, I had the option to visit some friends and put my studio display against what really was its predecessor, just without the Apple badge in it. That's the 5K LG ULTRAFINE monitor. So in this video, I'm going to let you know how I thought they compared side by side. So straight out of the box, the studio display, well, it feels Apple-y. It feels like a Mac, to be honest with you. It's solid. It's got an air of quality about it, and you know what you're buying into. It feels great. Now, I had heard that the LG ULTRAFINE felt slightly plasticky by comparison. That's not true at all. The stand alone, the stand was like a block of concrete. It was really solid, really heavy. And once that's on your desk, it is going nowhere. One of the things that I really appreciated about the LG ULTRAFINE was the fact that you could adjust it to height. It's a more comfortable height to work at, and that's because it's got both the height and tilt adjustable stand. I've only got the basic, only got the basic studio display here. For an extra £400 out of the back pocket, I could have bought the display with a height adjustable stand, but I really think that's not fair of Apple to expect yet more money on what is already a very premium and high-end display. So side by side, I would say the LG ULTRAFINE is a more comfortable working height because of that height adjustable stand, but the feel of it is really good. I probably slightly prefer the look of the Apple Studio display, but then again, I think it's fair to say I like the Apple products. I'm not necessarily the most unbiased of judges on that, but on the desk, I think you're going to like either of these panels. Both of them sit well, both of them do the job well, but I do like the extra height that is available for no extra cost with the LG ULTRAFINE. Allegedly, these two panels are exactly the same, and they do look very, very similar indeed. Straight out of the iMac, we're told. They both got a resolution of 5120 by 2880 and P3 color. The extra 100 nits of brightness on this machine does help. It maxes out at 600 nits as opposed to LG's 500 nits, and we felt that that made a difference to sharpness and clarity. Both have got a viewing angle of 178 degrees, and the LGs that I was looking at this week, they've been used for 10 to 12 hours a day for about the last 18 months, and there's no dead spots, there's no flat cells. It's a really good quality panel. So, I mean, that side by side, they do look remarkably similar as you would come to expect with them. Connectivity on the back, again, it's like for like. You've got a Thunderbolt 3 cable on the back, which will connect the monitor to your Mac, and it will charge your MacBook Pro as well. And then you've got 3 USB Type-C ports on the back as well. So they are very, very similar to look at. One of the things that I loved about the LG display was the fact it had an anti-glare coating on the screen. We were working or looking at these in an office with a fairly bright environment, but no direct sunlight, and it was definitely more comfortable to look at the LG screen. Now, yes, I could have got that on my studio display, but once again, I'd been reaching into the back pocket, and this time Lewis would have had to find another £300 for that, whereas it comes as standard on the LG ULTRAFINE. And the LG ULTRAFINE, don't forget, was cheaper anyway. So viewing, it's really hard to say. I think slightly to the Apple Studio display because of the extra 100 nits of brightness, but that anti-reflective glare on the LG ULTRAFINE made it a really comfortable viewing experience. Ports are like for like. Onto audio now, and it's hands down a win for the studio display. On recent releases, Apple have been making a lot of noise, that's a terrible pun, I'm sorry, about their speakers, and rightly so. In the MacBook Pro, I was amazed how good they were. And the 6-speaker lineup in the studio display is even better, with more space, more air. They sound rich. You've got fairly good presence in the mids. You've got decent bass. they just sound good speakers. And if you wanted to listen to general content all day long, you wouldn't have a problem at all. And of course, you've got access also to spatial audio if you're listening to content that's made with Dolby Atmos, and access to Hey Siri, the voice assistant, as well. On to the LG Ultrafine, very different story. Thin, shrill, no depth, no bass, very, very lacking in mids, just a bad listening experience altogether. And you'd almost certainly want to buy speakers taking up precious room on your desk virtually the moment that you got the LG Ultrafine. And the other thing to mention also on the studio display is you get a three-way mic setup in there with some noise compression as well. So you've got a decent mic setup and great speakers. From an audio point of view, it's an absolute win for the studio display. But it's a different story when we talk about the camera. And you've probably heard all you want to hear about the camera on the studio display, and everything you heard about it is true. It's rubbish. It's pitiful and it's woeful, and it shouldn't be there. There was a firmware update sent through this week, which has improved things slightly. It's improved the framing. You look slightly less orange, slightly less plasticky, but there's also a lot of image noise still there. It's not a good experience at all. Compared to the LG Ultrafine, that was a much better camera, hands down. It was sharper, crisper, brighter. The framing was right, which would have been aided by the fact it was a higher monitor. Apple kind of shot themselves in the foot there. But the camera that's built into the LG Ultrafine is definitely better and superior to that of the studio display. Now, yes, the studio display has got center stage, and I actually saw it working with the guys in the office this week for the first time when there was more than just me in the frame. It's very clever, but it's not a feature that's going to be used regularly by me and probably by yourself. So you're paying a big, big price to have center stage. And I think center stage is a lot of the problems they've been having with this camera, the compression and all sorts of things they've had to work with. You're paying a big price to have that feature in there, which is something you won't use that often, and it just kills the camera. You would not want to use the camera on the studio display. Absolutely not. I was on a Zoom call this week with Brian Tong, and I'll leave some links to that podcast in the video description here. And I would not have thought of using the camera that was on the studio display. And as much as the LG Ultrafine's camera is better, the camera you see up there, which is a fairly inexpensive Logitech C920, beats them both. That's a really good camera. If you're looking to get a 1080p camera to go on your studio display, I reckon that's great. And I'll leave a link to it in the description here as well. But camera, it's a win for LG, but equally, it's a real big win for that little camera up top there, the Logitech. And just before wrapping up and giving you my conclusion on the two displays, let's talk about keeping your Mac clean. I made a video earlier this week about the first 5 apps that I put on my new MacBook Pro, and one of those was CleanMyMac for MacPaw. I've bought 3 licenses so far. I rate it that highly, and it's a brilliant, simple piece of software to install. It sits in the menu bar at the top. It gives you a suggestion of when to run it. I run it once or twice a week, possibly. It gets rid of hidden apps that you've forgotten all about. It helps you get rid of duplicates. It looks out big files you're not using anymore. And most importantly, it uninstalls apps that you're no longer using as well and will highlight them for you. It also checks for malware, and it looks for system junk. It keeps your machine running like day one. As I say, it's one of the first 5 apps that I put on the MacBook Pro, and I can't rate it high enough. If you're looking for something to either rejuvenate one of your Macs or to look after your brand new Mac, CleanMyMac for MacPaw is brilliant. I can't recommend it highly enough. And if you want to get yourself a little bit of discount and help the channel out, there's an affiliate link in the description to the video. Right, let's look at the 2 displays side by side now and see what I thought. Don't forget, the LG Ultrafine was £400 cheaper when new, and that's a big chunk of money. What do you get for the £400 on the studio display? Basically, from what I could see, you get a 3-way mic system, better speakers, and 100 nits of extra brightness. That's kind of it. The viewing experience, which is the crucial part here, was very, very similar. It was marginally, very fractionally sharper on the studio display, but we are really splitting hairs. Yes, it was a little bit better. That 100 nits of extra brightness did matter, and maybe that would be enough to sway you. But on the LG Ultrafine, you're getting the height adjustable stand, and you're getting the anti-reflective coating, which made it for a great user experience. It really did. Made it so comfortable to use. The camera on the studio display is awful, whereas on the LG Ultrafine, it's more than usable. So it really depends on what you want on your desk. If you want to look like an Apple showroom, which unashamedly I do, it was always going to be this. But if you're looking for quality of display, then I'll tell you what, I would look around and see if you can find yourself an LG Ultrafine. They've aged really well. There hasn't been any unreliability issues, and they are great panels to work with. So if you're looking to save a few pounds, try and find yourself an LG Ultrafine 5K if you can. Bag yourself an absolute steal there because they're great monitors. But if not, I've been really happy with this studio display apart from the camera. So guys, it's time for you to get involved now and let me know which panel you would choose. If you could find an LG, would you go for that or would you go for Apple Studio Display? Let me know in the comments below on this video. I'll be leaving a link to the podcast with Brian Tong as well. He was massively entertaining. I think you'll enjoy listening to that. And if you want to keep your Mac feeling just like new, don't forget to use the affiliate link below for Clean My Mac. And at the end of this video, I'm going to leave a little teaser where you can watch me talk about the 5 apps I bought my brand new Mac, and Mac Cleaner was one of them. See you soon.